Hello and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. So people like Neil Patel and many other influencers on YouTube have been talking about the demise of Google after ChatGPT was launched. In fact, my Twitter feed has been loaded with suggestions from tweets of people mainly talking about the fact that the LLMs are killing search engines and the fact that we've got so many LLMs out right now, including Google's Gemini, including ChatGPT, and we've got Llama, and we've got loads of others. And that means that people are no longer going to search engines like Google and searching for answers. So that means that Google's market share has gone down and the future is not really with Google, but it's probably with someone who has an LLM on their desktop. They can go ahead and ask an LLM a question, and the LLM will provide them an answer. The problem with that is the data does not show any of that. So when people like Neil Patel and loads of other SEOs say that you need to worry about Google's market share dying or Google dying. That is not really the case. At least the data does not show that. Now, what happens in 2025 is anyone's guess. People are predicting the demise of Google in 2025. But then again, people were predicting the demise of Google back in 2024. But we have data from 2023 and we have data from 2024. And if we put the two together, we kind of know what's going on and whether or not Google is dying. So there are two main questions here. Are AI tools taking market share away from Google? So that's number one. And number two, is Google search growing, flatlining, or just plain old declining? So we've got some data from Datos, which is an SCM Rush company by Rand Fishkin, and he kind of put this on Twitter when I had read through the article. And there's a link to the article for anyone who wants to read this in its entirety. But I'll go ahead and, kind of give you like the main, I'll give you all the juicy bits so that you don't have to read through this 2,000-word article. So Google search growth rate. So over here, we have a chart for how much Google search has grown over since 2023 to 2024. And you can see, you know, um, that Google's search has grown tremendously. Now, Google is a mature product. It's not a brand new product. So for a mature product to grow, let's say 21.64% is a lot. Usually the average growth for a mature product will be like 5%, 6%, but that's not the case. So the growth here is in a single year is 21.64% for Google search across all of Google search, which includes AI search, so Google's AI search. So it also fits in what their CEO Sundar Pichai has said that AI makes people search more on Google, and that has increased the search traffic on Google. The problem with that statement is that it's not entirely true. So while there may be more people searching on so while there may be more people searching on Google search, the click-through rate for those searches to search results are far lower. In fact, if you look at the click-through rates, and this is a Share Interactive study that shows that organic results suffered a 70% drop in CTR, paid dropped by 12%, and another study from AWR shows a similar drop of around uh, a good 60-70% for organic CDR and around 8 to 9% for paid. So what that means is, so while you have someone who comes in and searches on Google, which increases traffic to Google search, it does not translate to traffic that goes to your website or my website, unless there's a motivation to go to the website. And so Google is kind of taking away that motivation by providing the whole answer right away. And usually that answer is a copy pasted answer from, two or three websites that's put together. And the unpredictability of LLMs mean that you can't really trust the answer, but the average person does not know whether or not they can trust it. They think, all right, this answer comes from Google. It might be the right answer, especially when it comes to statistical answers, like what is the population of Bangladesh in 2019, or how much does it cost to live in Dubai in 2024? So all those types of answers, it's like the LLMs are not really great at answering those types of questions. But the average Joe does not know that. So the next one is, who are the major AI tool challengers for Google? And it's important to know this because if we're going to say that Google, then there is eventually going to be a demise of the search giant. you kind of have to know like who it's up against. So for the most part, they're up against Perplexity, Claude, Copilot, and Gemini. The graph of their usage I've put here on the screen, so you can see perhaps the most used, which is around 16% is ChatGPT, and all the others like Perplexity and Claude and Copilot and Gemini are just around like 5% at best. So the majority market share is still held by ChatGPT. So it's impressive that Google Gemini is now in second place in terms of search, which is around 5%. But then if you want to compare volume of searches against Google, ChatGPT is next to nothing. So the other the other ones are like super small, so that's negligible when you compare Google search to these LLMs. It's a league of its own. So there's no real competition there, at least for now. So what metrics do we need to directly compare Google with ChatGPT in search? So there are a few things here, and this is what the article compares. It compares how many searches are run in Google each day, how many prompts are entered into ChatGPT each day, each month, what percentage of GPT's prompts have search-like behavior, and comparable to what we think of a traditional search in search engines. So what that means is, what kind of traditional search terms are now being used in ChatGPT. So when someone search for how do I get a car loan in Arizona in Google, are they searching for the same in the same way in ChatGPT? So that's the question. So the first one was answered last week by two independent sources. Google themselves released a public statement that saw more than 5 trillion searches in 2024. SparkToro and Datos, both it was Datos again owned by SEMrush, confirmed this estimate by looking at Datos panel and calculating the average number of searches per active panelist and percentage of panelists visiting Google. Again, Google is on top. So how many searches are run in Google search each day, each month? A lot more than ChatGPT. The next was answered in December by OpenAI Sam Altman at the DealBook conference, where he announced that AI tool received 1 billion messages per day. Unfortunately, messages aren't the same as prompts, and unlike a search in Google or Bing, a user may go back and forth many times with conversational AI before landing on an answer, but don't worry, we've got a solution. So what this means is, and this is I'm reading from the article by the way, what this means is that when someone goes on ChatGPT, they don't have the same intention as they would on Google. So on ChatGPT, they would ask a question, but then they will ask multiple follow-up questions because they're having a conversation with ChatGPT. So in other words, uh, it's very hard to know like if people are really finding what they're looking for with ChatGPT, and after how many prompts and after how long are they finding what they're looking for. But in fact, is it a much shorter time for someone to just go to the website or an authoritative website and just read the article on that site? Well, we don't have the data because ChatGPT does not share a lot of data. A lot of what Sam Altman says is plain old lies because he doesn't reveal anything. And then when there is a lawsuit, things come out, it it turns out that this guy lied. So at the end of the day, we can't really trust anything that Sam Altman provides us with because there's no real data. It's not even like what Google provides. So it's very hard to say whether or not they're growing for sure. So we have to base, or at least there in this article, this data is based on what people from desktops are searching for, and even that data is limited. So thanks to SEM's Rise 2024 research into GPT, we know how many messages the average prompt session entails. So I have a screenshot here of that research study. And so according to SEMrush analysis, the median number of messages in a ChatGPT conversation is 3, meaning that more than half, 59% of users had conversations involving 3 messages or less. However, when looking at the average number of messages in a conversation, this number increased to 8. So the average number of conversations is like 8, at least they're asking 8 questions, including the presence of longer interactions, especially in cases where users ask for further clarification or examples about a specific topic. Now, when someone asks for examples of a specific topic, that someone is usually doing some research, okay? They're either writing a paper or a college school or something, or they're doing something as part of their work. So a regular person It's not going to ask for specific examples unless they're trying to build something at which ChatGPT is not great at answering even those types of questions. So the last one is a little harder to answer. Um, but according to SEMrush's analysis, there are 80 million clickstream prompts, and we know that 70% of prompts are from non-search like functions for when like people are asking ChatGPT to create images, summarize text, write code, doing math homework, so that kind of thing. So a lot of this is not even like search or related. It's just getting LLMs to do what they're looking for. So at the end of the day, we have the search intent on ChatGPT. And this gives you a pretty good picture of what's going on with ChatGPT. So 70% of what's going on is like unknown. Okay, as I said, Google, ChatGPT is not like Google. It doesn't share a lot of the data that we would need to formulate an answer, to formulate a data-driven answer as to how much ChatGPT owns of the market share, owns of Google's market share. We have no idea. Okay. So what we know is like 1.8% is average like commercial prompts and ChatGPT. There are around 10% of navigational prompts. Um, there are transactional prompts of like 2.3%, and informational is around 15%. So the vast majority of prompts from ChatGPT to ChatGPT, the ones that we know of, is informational. But I'll also caution you here that a lot of these so-called informational prompts are getting ChatGPT to do something. All right. So, how do I write an Excel VLOOKUP formula? Okay. Or write me an Excel VLOOKUP formula for this. So that's kind of what this data includes. So again, you know, that is where we're at. So the ChatGPT prompts we care about is like the ones that overlap from search engines. Like as I said, like someone who's searching for a car loan, or someone who's searching for a mortgage, or someone who's searching for a bouncy house for the kid's birthday. So do we have those types of searches? And so if you look at this, we have the breakdown of the number of searches received by ChatGPT. So they'll receive 1 billion messages. The average is of 8 messages prompts, and 30% of prompts have search-like intent. So which means that they're getting a roughly around 37.5 million searches a day. Whereas at Google, they're getting 5 trillion plus searches a year, which means 365 days a year, which equals to 14 billion searches a day. You've got 37.5 million on one end, and you've got 14 billion on the other end. So you can see that Google is not exactly dying. So in 2024, Google receives 373 times more searches than ChatGPT. The AI tool search volume is also similar to Pinterest. So yeah, so ChatGPT's search volume is a lot like Pinterest, which is around 20 million searches a day, and one third of what DuckDuckGo's 108 million searches a day. So that's to give you some context. So even when you compare ChatGPT to DuckDuckGo and Pinterest, it's not a lot. Okay, they're still winning compared to ChatGPT. But this is data from 2024. So things might change in 2025. And we know that LLMs are getting more popularity. There are more people increasingly using it. There are more people paying for it. So if we were to put this in a chart, and this is in a chart in the article, it shows that Google is 14 billion. So that's Google. And the other ones are just near invisible. So in terms of market share, 93.57% is still owned by Google Search, and all the other platforms own this very small data sets, very small market shares. So numbers are both from public record and what Google has been publishing, but I must caution you, a lot of the data that we have from Bing, Yahoo, and ChatGPT, and DuckDuckGo, this is not all the data. Okay, so they don't share everything. They don't make everything public. The same goes for Google. So this is from data that we have. And even though I don't want to like come across as someone who says that, AI is not going to catch up or AI does not have potential, I don't want to say any of that because I'm not an expert when it comes to AI searches or, what the AI industry. But what I will tell you is that there will always be a search engine, and there will always be websites that will want to rank in those search engines. So anyone that says like, it's dead or it's not dead, I would say it's not that until and unless LLMs become more reliable and the answers they provide are as reliable as an answer you would get from an authoritative website. If that does not happen, There's always going to be a market for authoritative websites. There's always going to be a market for news websites. There's always going to be a market for e-commerce stores, even though the way in which they communicate with the end user um, may differ. So someone who's searching for an iPhone may go and type into ChatGPT and they say which is the best iPhone, and they will be then provided with a list. Most of it would come from vendors that are selling iPhones, and they could just maybe click on a listing and just buy the iPhone directly off ChatGPT. And that does not mean that the people are not buying iPhones anymore. It just means that the vendor that was selling that iPhone is no longer only relying on Google to rank for the iPhone term, but now they are also ranking in ChatGPT. And if they have enough authority in Bing and Google, uh, there's a higher probability that ChatGPT will recommend their store, and there'll be a lot more people buying from them. So does not mean that that search is dying or optimization is dying. It's evolving. It's changing like everything else. 15 years ago, when we were doing SEO, all you did was do comment spam, build PBNs, just keyword stuff your website, add like repetitive sentences. We would cloak and do all the other stuff, and it would work. Okay, and then the Panda update changed everything, so that no longer works. And as with everything with Google search and search in general, things are evolving, and this is evolving too. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Do you think that Google will eventually succumb to LLMs, and how soon that will happen?